I just wanted to come on here and film a little part 2 to my video that kind of started off my whole entire channel, my PAX RN video. So I just wanted to film like a little part 2 because I still feel like I have a lot more to say. And in the video I was kind of, you know, being a little shy. I'm a lot more comfortable with the camera now, so I feel like I'll be able to give more study advice. And I know it's coming up, like December, January, February is like PAX RN season. So I just wanted to film a part 2 because I still have a lot more advice to give. So I'm not going to include any of this stuff I mentioned in my other video, or if I do, like, I'm sorry, but I will leave a link to it down below. But of course, like, you guys know the basics by now. Like, read the NLN study book and all that stuff. But I have a little bit of unique advice to give that I use to help study for my test. And if you guys didn't watch the first video and you're just the first video, hi, my name is Sylvia. I got 146 composite score, which is in the 99th percentile, and I want to help you guys achieve the same score. So let's get into it. First and foremost, I want to say if you have been studying from the NLN, oh my god, I always say that wrong, study book, you will find that eventually you start to memorize the little practice question answers, and eventually, like, it's not really a practice test anymore because you know all the answers. So if you come into that problem especially within the English and the math section, not so much the science, but this is more applicable to those sections, I have a great advice for you. So if you do come along those sections, you realize that you are like, I know the answers to this, I'm not really testing myself anymore, and you don't really have any more online resources, I highly recommend looking up like SAT prep questions, which is what I did, and it kind of worked. Like, it kind of really helped me, especially for the math, because I found that the math is like the same difficulty. It's like the SAT questions without the calculator, because a lot of, like, that seems to be the difficulty of the PAX RN math questions. And there is like a little grammar section on the PAX RN test, and if you can find like old SAT tests where they had a similar section to that before, then like you're golden, because like a lot of the questions, like when you have to like have a word and you have to kind of figure out the meaning within the sentence, they have that on a lot of like older SAT exams. So I highly recommend this if you feel like you're like exhausted all the questions in all of your review books and you just ran out of questions and want to test yourself. This is what I found really works great. Speaking of vocab, so let's say you want to learn the vocabulary. There are so many Quizlets you can find online with just like lists of vocabulary words, and there's like PAX RN one specific. I'll make sure to try to leave those down below if I can find them, but they just have all the vocabulary words that could possibly show up on the exam. So it's great if you're like reviewing, if you're on the train, if you're just sitting there, you kind of shuffle through them. It's on Quizlet, so it's really easy. But let's say you don't want to do that. A lot of what I found it was helpful was like, like again with the SAT questions, they have like a lot of those same like books have sections of the book where they like teach you how to recognize like the syntax of a word, how to find the meaning from like the prefix and the suffix and all of that stuff. I'll leave resources down below, but if you guys can learn that kind of stuff, then it will definitely help you in the English section when you're trying to figure out, when they give you a word and they're like, what's this word's meaning? Like, knowing those little things are going to like greatly help you. I'll leave resources down below for everything I'm talking about, so you guys do have some sense of guidance and can go down below and kind of find the stuff that you guys need. So even though I do think the NLN book does a great job with the science section, they are lacking in some bits, and there are like a lot of, like, there have been like a couple of diagrams, especially on my exam. So if you guys can, and you're reading the science section and you feel like a section is insufficient, like for me it was respiration. Like, I had a diagram on respiration and like kind of your lungs on the test, and I was like, I've never seen this before, but I wish I looked it up because I remember I was reading the book and I was like, oh, I feel like respiration is a little bit lacking in this book. So I went to go look it up. So if you guys are reading the book and you feel like you don't fully understand something, or you feel like you don't have all of the material that you kind of need, then I definitely will recommend kind of going online and finding other resources or kind of reading up on it, because you can never know too much, but you can know too little. And on my old video I did have a question, like a couple questions of people asking me like, hey, I don't like studying, or like, what's the study method to use? I have had some people DM me on Instagram and ask me like, what's your study method? And I really like the I'm probably gonna say it wrong, the Pomodoro method of studying. where it's like you figure out, you do intervals of studying, like 20 minutes of studying, 5 minutes rest, and then you keep doing that until you're done studying for the day, and really like take those rests. So I highly recommend like implementing that into your PAX RN studying. And it's about time, like finding what time intervals work for you. But when I did that, I felt like I was slacking off less. Like when I would try to like study for 2 hours nonstop, no breaks, I feel like I would like halfway through I would start slacking off and like sit on my phone for an hour. So if you implement that, you give yourself rest time, and you kind of will like ingrain the information better in your brain. I feel like this is a study method I started implementing halfway through my studying, and I found that I was doing better on my practice exams. And I was kind of remembering more of the information because I was actually kind of engaged for those 20 minutes, and then I had that 5 minutes rest, and then I was re-engaged in that information for another 20 minutes. I felt like my brain was like fully into it. I don't know if that makes sense, but I will have like articles down below if you guys are like curious, how do I do this? And like if you guys want to implement that study method into your own studying, I highly recommend it. I still use it to this day when it comes to many of my nursing classes. It like really helps, and that is kind of like a habit that you guys really should pick up. It's really great. I'm gonna leave it down below. I love it so much. Another method I suggest you implement into your studying is to time yourself actually taking the practice exams. I literally started doing this like halfway through my studying, and then I realized like holy shit, I would not have finished the section in time. And especially with that brolic science section where you have such like a little bit of time like to answer all those questions, I feel like you won't have enough time if you don't like pace yourself. So it's important to time yourself while you're taking your practice exam, so you are able to pace yourself and to like know like, oh my gosh, where am I at? So that is so important, and I neglected it for so long, so I was like, why am I gonna time myself? I'm gonna do fine. But especially also in the, like every section I need to time yourself for, except for math. But also about math, if you like are taking the exam, please find out in advance if your school is allowing you to use a calculator on the math section, because one, if they do let you use a calculator, then you should use a calculator when you're studying. Like you can call up the school and ask them like, hey, can I use a calculator? That's what I did. I called the testing center and I was like, hey, can I use a calculator on the exam? And they were like, yeah, we're gonna have one on the computer. And then when I was studying, I was using a calculator, and I kind of was used to it more. So but if your school doesn't, then you're gonna have a little bit of a more difficult time with the math section, because you're gonna have to do everything by hand. So that's something to like really consider. Like I remember when I took my exam, like because I had a calculator, I did the whole math section in like 15 minutes just because I like sped by it, because I was like, I know this, I got this. I think I ended up getting like 2 questions wrong, which is probably my dumb mistake, but you know, it's always worth seeing if you guys have that or not, just so you can go in prepared. Okay, so I feel like that's all of the study tips I have. So let's kind of go through everything I've talked about in all of my videos. But if you guys don't really want to stay for my little summary, please like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Honestly, like it means the world to me. And also happy holidays, because I'm probably going to come out with this video on Christmas Eve. But really happy holidays, guys, and please like and subscribe if you guys enjoyed the video. But now let's go into the summary. So basically, like the important like book that you should be studying is the Red NLN practice book. I will leave it linked down below. That book is the key to your success. It's made by the people who make the test, and I cannot recommend it enough. Like if you're gonna buy a study book, buy that one. I mean, buying more than one I feel like is unneeded, just because there are like you can take the book that the NLN gives you and find more online resources to expand upon that information. But other practice books are gonna have more like science questions, so I don't really have any like advice on how to find more science questions. Like I said earlier, for English and math, there are like practice SAT questions that are very similar in my opinion. Like if you look at the SAT section, no calculator, it is very similar to many of the questions seen on the PAX RN. Also, in addition to that, many of the English questions, like the reading comprehension passages, are very similar. So if you have a problem with reading comprehension or having a hard time reading passages and understanding it and interpreting it, I highly recommend you guys do look at the SAT resources, because one, they'll do a great job at explaining it, and two, like it is just some more extra practice you guys can get in. And the SAT doesn't do like a little word section like they do, where they give you like a word and you kind of have to like guess the meaning. But I know older SAT books really do have that, so I think they stopped doing it like 2 years ago. So if you can find those older SAT like resources that that do have those type of questions, I highly recommend it. But if you guys don't want to do that, do not be sleeping on the Quizlets, because there are so many vocabulary Quizlets online that you guys can just like shuffle through all the time. Like you're on the train, Quizlet. You're waiting on like in line, Quizlet. Like there's so many Quizlets online that provide you with like excellent like material. So I'll leave those linked down below. Like the vocabulary ones are especially helpful, but like I said, I had a hard time in the English section just because I didn't implement any of my own advice. Also, I talked about the Pomodoro study method, and this is just not really NLN specific, but it's just a great study method that I feel like people should be implementing in their everyday lives because it is so good. And if you can study 3 hours, but if not all of that studying is like efficient or effective studying, then it's like you're wasting your time like studying those 3 hours. So that's just my 2 cents, but there you guys go. And you guys can feel free to leave a comment down below if you have any questions on anything. I am open. My DMs are always open. If you have a question and you don't want to leave a comment down below, you can always just DM me on Instagram. Like Instagram is always down below in the description. It's gonna be like follow my socials, and there's my Instagram, and if you have a question, please DM me and I will answer within 1 day, probably, maybe. We'll see about that, but I will answer as fast as I can. I am pretty quick at responding to my DMs. You can ask some people have already DM'd me on Instagram asking me for more advice, and I have responded like within the hours. So but happy holidays everyone, and please don't forget to like and subscribe if you made it this far. Thank you guys so much, and goodbye.